So compositions come down to guiding the eyes of the audience. Do we want them to look at one strong subject or let them wander around the picture? Leading lines is probably a technique that is the strongest in doing this. So what is a leading line? Essentially, it's a visual element that acts as a line, and when following that line, we end up with the subject. So we have leaded the eyes of the audience to the subject. Now, of course, that subject can be anything. It could be a person where we have a branch leading towards them, but it could also be a path leading towards this entrance of the park. Now, since leading lines are such a strong element to focus on the subject, it's therefore often used in establishing or long shots where it's not as easy to locate the subject. Alright, we get it. Imaginary lines that lead the eyes of the audience. But just like anything else in your shot, leading lines are also elements. They are either an object or something visually that grabs attention. And like we've seen before, we have two composition rules, the rule of thirds and the golden ratio. So what if we would place these leading lines onto one of these compositions? Then we get a very interesting shot. Take for instance the rule of thirds. We have a couple of leading lines here towards the subject. As we can see, these leading lines lay on the guides of the rule of thirds. It's a balanced framing. But where it really gets interesting is if we would use the golden ratio. This spiral that we're seeing right here is a leading line. So if we can find an object that somehow fits that spiral, we get a super interesting shot. In this example, we've got Lorenzo as the subject, and this path right here forms a leading line going into a spiral to him. And as we discover him in the shot, our eyes are being guided back to the beginning of that spiral with this branch right here that forms another leading line. We're going back to the start of the spiral, which guides us back to Lorenzo. And so the viewer has seen the entire shot. Through a very simple composition technique, we have made the shot so interesting that we look at every corner of the picture. This also means that we're able to have this shot longer in the edit without it getting boring. So look around in your environment. Can you see elements that form a line or a spiral? Great, now align that to the rule of thirds or the golden ratio, and you've got yourself a super interesting shot. Now, keep in mind that all of the other techniques that we've seen previously still apply. Work with depth of field, color, exposure, and the perspective of the camera. Now, until now, we've mostly been working with still images, so everything also applies to photography. In the next lessons, we're going to see how to bring motion into our shots, or how video editing works with different compositions. So perhaps take a break, go out and practice the leading lines techniques together with all of the other tips that you've seen before, and I'll see you back in the next lesson. Thanks for watching.